Welcome, Dharma Circle. Swati here, the embodied Dharma coach, mentor, and guide for a Friday IG Live with a special guest today, a dear friend, Stacey. Stacey Ramsauer is one of my friends. She's been a client of mine, and I've loved watching her grow and embody more of her gifts and wisdom along the way. She calls herself a full spectrum doula, and she has had 2 children now. She's going to tell us all about how to be a successful, spiritual, embodied business leader as a mother, even with 2 children. She is still living the dream and sharing her gifts and wisdom from a dharmic perspective. So I'm going to invite her in. I'm glad this worked. It's always a little tricky to get everyone signed in and get live. Hi, Stacey. I
Hi.
give you a warm welcome and thank you for being here as a mother of 2 now and a full spectrum doula. You are still running a successful business, sharing your gifts and your wisdom. And this is from a dharmic perspective. So you've really been cultivating a path that is body centered and fully aligned with your gifts and your wisdom. So let's start off by just talking a little bit more about what you do and what does a full spectrum doula actually mean?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Full spectrum doula means a couple of different things in the sort of larger context of birth work in our culture. Full spectrum refers to preconception all the way through postpartum, and in my understanding includes pregnancy loss, whether by choice or nature's choice, and working with a woman in all areas of her experience of transformation. So that, for me, includes sexual health, spiritual health, ancestral health. And I always come back to that descriptor in my work because it feels the most aligned with what I do, even though, doula has become, I'm a business doula, I'm a this, it's fine. But where I'm coming from with that word is really in service of a woman's full spectrum health. And that includes your sexuality. It includes your relationship to the ancestors. It includes your spirituality. It includes what you're eating. It includes how you relate to the world around you. And it also definitely applies specifically to the birth spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of that work.
Yeah, and what we've talked about in the past and through our work together, grief became a big catalyst for this transformational journey that a woman goes on, goes through, goes with during her birthing process. And this is one of the places where most people aren't looking or even shocked or surprised by the grief that comes up during this journey. And so I know that grief work has influenced you and your work and your own journey so much. Share a little bit with us about how grief work is a part of this full spectrum doula work.
Oh my gosh, it's just hearing you say that, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even name that because it's so embedded in everything. It's become, thanks to my experiences, in part working with you and also doing the depth work myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, honestly, after about a solid year of doing regular grief ritual with you and another, a group of incredible women, I had experienced a pregnancy loss, which opened up parts of my body that it was like I didn't know they existed, parts of my soul that I hadn't had access to before that. And also my journey being an adopted child and meeting my birth mother, arguably the largest source of grief in my whole entire life. And obviously connected to my pregnancy loss as well. Like opened me up to this sense of loss of a child, this echo of my birth mother, however many, mothers before her, who weren't able to give voice to their grief, didn't have a space to ritualize it. And coming to realize how that grief just literally dropped me to my knees, transformed my relationship to my body, made available, for the first time, reverence for rest, sense of trust in not doing, and focusing in really deeply, like not doing everything. Probably the biggest source of pain in my professional and personal life is trying to be everything to everyone. And the grief has a way of simplifying.
Yeah.
Like stripping away, just like I have no capacity to hold this anymore. I have no capacity to care what you think. It was transformational. And another really significant moment for me with the grief was recognizing I had an opportunity to teach at a yoga festival in Houston, and a friend of mine had organized a red tent, and it was like, all day long. And I think another one, someone that you and I both know, Jenna Longoria, taught right before me. Anyway, my presentation was about sexual healing, and almost out of nowhere, I say that knowing full well it just like bubbled up from the depths of me, but it came as a total surprise to me in the moment. My class started with an acknowledgement of, in order to have sexual healing, we have to be with the grief of all the pain that we've experienced in our sexual body up to this point. And there we are. I mean, it's just so fundamental to the work.
So what happens when a woman is not doing her grief work or not willing to do her grief work, and she's birthing or has children, but is also trying to run a successful business? How does grief work play a role in the mothering journey? And what happens when it's not getting done?
Not avoidance of grief to me is just like never ever cleaning out your closet or like cleaning the floor in your house. Things are accumulating constantly, and small particulates like eventually become bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it's like this forced collapse, right? Like at some point it's going to bring you down. And to your question about specifically how it relates to mothering, just the acknowledgement that there's so much grief in becoming a mother. There's so much grief for your lost life, the things we'll never be able to do again, that don't take away from the joy of mothering as long as you're acknowledging. Right? Like mothering is this double-edged sword of like unbelievable sacrifice. And grieving, at this point in time, I'm grieving the probability that I won't have another child. But there would be a lot of grief to contend with if I chose to have another baby too.
Yeah.
So it's just this, ferocious work. Walking this fine line between, one cliff on this side, one cliff on that side. But it, as I said before, the grief work for me has brought me to my knees. So like lowered my center of gravity. I'm in relationship to the earth. I feel the weight of my body, which enables slower steps, more stability. heard a quote yesterday that I love so much, that slowly is the fastest way to get anywhere. And that to me relates to doing the grief work. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it just slows you way down, and that can feel really difficult if you have been, hustling like so many of us do.
Yeah, and the culture of hustle and do, which I see a lot of mothers doing. So most
Yes.
of my clients are actually mothers. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of mothers over the last many years. And there is something about motherhood that intensifies the desire for meaning in your life. And that's
Mm.
really celebrate about motherhood. And it depends on, it actually doesn't depend on where you are in the mothering journey. That seed gets planted when you have children. I see it all the time. It often
Mhm.
strengthens and sadly doesn't really get attended to till the children are much older, maybe even out of the house. Women in their late 40s and 50s often show up at my door ready for more meaning in life. And it's because of this grief journey that they've been on, and they know that there is more for them. I often like to remind clients too, whether you're a mother or not, don't worry, this conversation is for you. Because in fact, many women, their dharma is not motherhood at all. Now, you
Mhm.
may have children, but that does not mean that your dharma is to be a mother. And I think that's something that most women don't know. And there's even grief around that. I should love this more than I do. I'm supposed to love being a mother. And all the while, there's this deep yearning for more life, more of being of service, more sharing your gifts, your wisdom, shining brighter in ways outside of being a mother. And so I just want to assure any woman who's watching right now that it's this and what you're awakening through motherhood supports, it always supports your dharmic path. But being a mother doesn't, it may not be the thing. It may not be that you're only here to be a mother and that's supposed to bring you contentment, joy, and ease on your path. But either way, knowing that this is in many ways a path of service
Mm.
and sharing your gifts and your wisdom in other ways, having a dharmic business is also being of service. And that can be overwhelming for many mothers. Many women feel like it's too much or they're being stretched by overgiving. And so we have
Yeah.
to be really mindful of that. And I want to hear your way of navigating the overgiving, the overdoing, we live in a capitalist colonial society, and the hustle mentality, the push, 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 not listening to our body is the norm.
Yeah.
Most people are living a
Yeah.
life where body doesn't even come into the equation until and unless the body breaks down. Then we listen. So, how do you cultivate both this? It's a job of being a mother and
Mhm.
sharing your gifts and wisdom outside of being a mother, even though motherhood is shaping. But you actually started this journey before being a mother. So, I
Yeah.
know these gifts are innate to you, and I've seen your chart, so I know. Um, but this journey of, the serving within the household and the serving outside of the household, how do you maintain a level of connection to body and creating a body-centered life? And even how the role of grief is part of that.
Mm. I feel so much resonance with everything you said. I do think that there is a part of my dharma that is activated by mothering.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily like it is my dharma to be a mother, but it is essential to my dharma to be a mother.
Yeah.
And expressing in the world my limits.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that I came into this body on a path of, as you talk about and teach about, sort of accommodating,
Mm-hmm.
and also was set on a path to find my way, like very much this journey of being embodied as a mother and having a business has been critical to me learning how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. And the grief journey was a huge part of that too. Just feeling I have such visceral memory of going through my pregnancy loss. It's like I physically can't leave the house.
Mm.
There's something going on that I can't get off the couch. You have to help me. I have to ask for that help. I have to expect that that need will be met. I have to find a way also to honor some boundary around my energetic field. And it's deepened with each pregnancy after that. You know, coming into my third trimester of my first pregnancy, it was a shock to me how many limits were put on what I could do physically.
Mm.
But then somewhere in the back of my mind, somewhere in my body was a deep knowing that this is good. So, you know, grief enables, I think, more of a willingness, and it develops the skill to look toward pain, shock, disappointment with some tenderness and curiosity, and less of that avoidance that is so deeply ingrained in us. I mean, there's so much about birth and being newly postpartum that is like our culture has literally hidden away, to the point that like, oh, we won't even, you don't even need to go through that process. We can just take care of it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're, you know, this isn't a conversation about medicalized birth, so I won't go too deep down that rabbit hole, but this larger overculture that is just like insistent on the fact that slowing down to feel is a liability. My experience has been exactly the opposite. Slowing down to feel has strengthened my marriage. It's given me a much stronger body than I've ever had before.
Mm.
And it's enabled my business to continue
Mm.
to where I'm like, I'm not even doing anything, and I have people contacting me left, right, and center. And, oh, it can be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's no effort, but the effort is coming from a completely different place.
Mm-hmm.
The effort is to maintain clarity in just my relationship to every aspect of my life, which is fairly complicated. I'm responsible for many living beings. Mm. And my ability to be an active participant in my life requires trust when my body says no. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have gotten there without deep grief work. Mm-hmm. That was just like a solid year of being completely in the no. Mm-hmm. No, I can't do that. No, I don't have room for that. No, I can't tolerate this. Mm-hmm. And without no, how can there be a true yes?
It's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
well,
I feel like.
How does the yes and the no play into your offerings and your business and what you're actually able to show up for, willing to show up for, want to show up for? How is that supporting you in cultivating your offerings?
Well, that's been so critical. It's like to operate from a place of knowing that I also decide, it's one thing for someone to want to work with me. It's
Mm-hmm.
another thing for me to also want to work with them, and to honor the set of conditions that I know will make our work together fruitful. Like, I don't have space in my practice for someone who does not want to look at what hurts
Mm-hmm.
and what is not working with real depth and taking responsibility. Like, I just don't. I just don't. And that's a big no.
Yeah.
And it's a real edge. You know, it still feels edgy. I just redid my website, and there's a whole page that's like, our work will not be fruitful if blah 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 blah. And like, feels so good, but also makes my stomach churn a little bit. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
there's still that voice that questions like, oh, is this gonna push people away? Are they gonna like me? Are they gonna think that? But there's such a stronger voice on the other side of that. It's like, I get to take care of myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I am clear what enables my best to come forward, and that's all I'm willing to offer. I don't want to just be busy for the sake of being busy.
Mm-hmm. And you can't, like, physically, and you
Correct. Yeah.
time to just busy or take any old client. And I think that that's the beauty of motherhood, is Saturn ultimately.
Oh,
The,
yeah.
the constraints, the constrictions, the precision that's required, that ability, it's not even an ability, but the forced no that has to be in place, because you literally don't have the time, you don't have excess energy.
Yeah.
So you're working within this very tight, restrictive container of, this is what I can offer, and
Yeah.
at this precise moment. And women who don't have that, I'll be honest, you're not going to be successful with your offerings. You cannot do both. And I
Mm-mm.
don't even take clients who have newborns. At this point in my work and what I do with women, that is not the time to be starting a business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you have a business already, that might be a time where we can restructure that business and really use the wisdom of Saturn to strip it down to the bones and operate from that bones mentality. But ultimately, I don't even encourage women to start businesses at this time. I mean, it takes years
Yeah.
before that startup energy and life force energy can even be available to women. And
And
I with a lot of women whose children are grown, because that's when the energy actually starts to come back for something else. It's not
yeah.
always like that, but this is a very tricky conversation to have, because some women are very successful in it, but I question. And I want to remind women that if you can do that from a deep place of listening and
Yeah.
honoring of your body, then it's a yes. If it isn't from a body-centered place, I invite you to really question.
And also looking at the like signals from the body, I really resonate with you saying like there can be a restructuring that happens, but again, only
Only.
if there's a willingness to
Mhm.
say, I can't do what I used to do.
Yes. And there's the grief work that has to be done. Because
Yeah.
you're not willing to do that grief work, I guarantee you're going to keep trying to do it the same way that you were doing it before. This is a death process. And
Yeah.
unless you are willing to die, you will not be able to birth and be reborn.
Yeah.
This is the aversion that I see. Um, and it's complicated.
I
It's,
see new mothers. It's the mindset is so strong. The oppression of like the deep feminine is so strong to the point that, you know, I have women like, you know, I'm still bleeding and I'm just like, oh, hooray, I'm doing all of this and that. And like, I'm getting back to this and it feels so good, but I'm still bleeding after birth. And it's like, this, when would it be a good idea to like keep pushing and working really hard if you were bleeding from any other part of your body? But we've just like silenced and shut away and diminished, minimized the female art of like physicalizing death and release and wounding, that we just consider it like, oh, just like, I'll just cover it up and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
When specifically regarding postpartum healing, your body has grown not only a human being, but another organ to sustain your life and their life. And bleeding after birth is because there's a wound inside of you. And that indication from your body, like, I'm still very much healing. It is very much like a wound on any part of your body. If it's still bleeding, like, we gotta slow down.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really remarkable thing that happens with birth and mothering that I've experienced. I'll just describe my own experience. You know, I've always been a yoga teacher, a dancer, practicing somatics, interested in my physical experience. And then some part of me realized, oh, some of that was also override. You know, there is a way to connect to our body, like in yogasana, that's override.
Mm-hmm.
There are deeper indicators, like as an Ayurvedist, what is my digestion doing? What is my skin showing me my digestion is doing or not doing? How is my elimination? How is my menstrual cycle? And these indicators are as critical as anything we can sense or see or intuit. Like getting really, really, really physical is also a big part. You know, I can only do so much as a mother. Like, I can't be away from my kids for that long. My body will give me an indicator. You have to go to your children. You're leaking. You know, there's pain. And there's something really beautiful to me about that and humbling. There's the necessary death of parts of our psyche, but like the death of my yoga practice, the death of my participation in certain physical activities, and doing the repair work on a physical and emotional and spiritual level doesn't always feel like a gift, but it is the greatest gift of my life.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm really pissed off about it.
Yeah. Saturn are not always the ones that, you know, they're not the, it's not always the pink bubble feel good.
They're not fun.
I'm reminded, you know, some of this is actually what I was talking to my therapist about this morning, but in fact, our relationship started through dance and yoga. So our friendship was cultivated through a body movement and creative, expressive language that we share. And, you know, it's interesting that you've been on this lifelong journey of body-centered being, and that's changing, of course, with motherhood, as it should.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep bringing it back to business.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to business, but how does that show up with your work as a full spectrum doula, you know, and you've mentioned some of the things that have changed for you, even the ways that you're working with women these days and your requirements for working with women. But how does the body continue to support or encourage your success on a business level?
It's so much more integrated. My business is so much more integrated into my rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I notice that there's less overwork.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it's not coming from this mind place of trying to figure out a puzzle and like, I don't know, it's really been a whole different attitude that's brought my business to this next level of success where I do have just almost immediate resonance with people that approach me, a very clear felt sense of like, no, I don't think we're a good fit, and I know someone else that might be a better fit. That clarity also has brought me into deeper relationship with collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to do all of it. I don't have to be the end all be all. I'm very clear what I'm good at, and more importantly, what I love. And to be able to like open up and come out of this kind of constricted, forcing, sometimes greedy, hoarding kind of feel that, you know, it's not been like a big part of my business, but there's been an element of that.
Mm-hmm.
Grabbing, and now I just feel so much more spacious, and I have these amazing collaborations happening and coming to me, and I feel held and carried in my success. That is like the most incredible thing.
Would you say that collaboration is one of the ways that you've been able to continue to show up and work and be successful, knowing that you have more people holding you or that it's a team effort?
Yes.
So that's
And collaborating with mothers who have businesses, who are further down the line, who can gently remind and nudge,
mm-hmm.
like, you're doing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You taught me, if you are a healer, if you are a resource for people, you have to be 10 times as resourced.
Yeah.
And
hey, let's just that because I don't care if you're a mother or not a mother, but what I always say, and I just want to reinforce this right now. However many people you or bodies, beings you want to hold, touch, or support through your work, you need to have double the support. You need to have an even big support team. So make sure physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual support is in place for you and your body. You cannot expand you can't expand your business without more holding yourself. Okay, go forward, Stacey. So people don't.
Yeah, it's been critical. And one of the things that's been the best about these collaborations, most of them have come to me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them I've reached out for, but having that attunement to, you know, the boundary, the limit of being a mom, being a mother, and wanting to engage and share. It's like, well, can't I just use some of what this person has created? Like, we tether together and move forward. And I have so much encouragement and steady reminders of like, you've done enough. You're doing a lot. And I don't think there's anything more valuable for mothers specifically to hear on a daily basis. You've done enough today. You are doing a lot. You've done a really good job. And I think there's tremendous value for everyone to hear those things, but there's something specific to the first few years of mothering when it's just such a slog.
Yeah.
And this transformation is happening underneath all of it. Your intimate relationships are changing. And there's a lot of grief because you're just reckoning on a daily basis with, well, that didn't get done. This isn't happening anymore. I can't do that like I thought I would. You know, I've had an intention to go to the gym for the last 2.5 years. I've gone like 3 times, which actually has been great. And I'm enabling that in myself to say, that's enough. And I think it's also been really important to have this humbling experience and to be able to really engage with how humbling it truly is to do the grief work. That's enabled me to be a much better facilitator of change for others because I'm actually less egoically involved.
Mm.
That's been super cool.
Mm.
And I've been able to, I think, secure some really robust collaborations because it's coming from a clear focus and intention and not some kind of like need to attach myself to someone else. You know probably better than anyone my codependent tendencies, patterns that I've been working through for lifetimes.
Mm.
And the transformation, I think, from really attending to grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then that frees you in your business to just be clear about what it is you do.
Yeah.
I remember in a class you recently taught someone asking a question about pricing and, but what about offering this or that as like an act of generosity? And you burst into flames in the most holy sense. And not only was that a transformation for me to hear you so in your power about what your gifts are and how generous your work is while costing what it costs, but also it was an awakening about the part of me that has come to know that and trust that in myself. Like,
Yeah.
that's power.
That's power. And this is where I'm passionate about mothers and power. And I mean, this is like a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
If done properly, even if done improperly, birthing, the act of birthing, is about empowering a woman on a very core level. This is about you embracing your physical, emotional, spiritual, mental power.
Power.
That power.
There's no other word for it.
On the other hand, what happens is that this power becomes ultimately, for so many, a disempowerment. I see the victim, the wound and the victim in every single mother I meet. Every single mother I meet and know has an inner victim that's pretty loud, to be honest. And I have a lot of theories around that. I'm sure you do as well. But that comes from that disempowerment. How does this power get turned into a disempowerment, become a wound, or intensify old wounds? And of course, my explanation is lack of grief work, lack of grief ritual and support and holding around that. But that has dire effects on how a woman moves forward, either in her power, claiming this power, living her power, her truth, her strength, her courage, embodying that, or continuing to literally go into this over-giving spiral that ultimately leads to burnout and self-destruction and self-loathing.
Yes.
And more times than not, sadly, I see that version at play in our world, in our communities, rather than this journey of what could be incredible power, thriving, success, and deep nourishment on a soul level. And so I'm curious about your thoughts on that, because ultimately your work is about supporting the power rather than letting a woman end up in disempowerment and disarray. Whether your work, your dharmic work, is motherhood or something completely different. Because as I said earlier, dharma for women, it doesn't mean your dharma, if you're a woman, is motherhood. It is
Correct.
very different for every soul. I look at charts every day. Not every chart is a motherhood chart when we're talking about dharma. So what's the way in which, or how do you encourage women to transform into the empowered, expressed, embodied being that they're capable of becoming, and not get stuck in this victim? And I mean, the stories of not enough, and not, I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I'm not capable, on and on and on. And that's where that overgiving, by the way, and that it looks like I'm being generous, but it's actually icky. And that's why I shut it down in that class that day, because I can't tolerate that. I won't tolerate that. Enough of the martyrdom. And until and unless your cup is overflowing, you have absolutely no reason. There should be no reason to be overgiving. That's not generous at all. It's icky.
Yeah.
So say more about the empowerment piece.
The empowerment is completely dependent on becoming intimately engaged with the parts that don't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, giving birth does not feel good. and it's complicated, because I still can feel, if I close my eyes and think about it, I can remember the physical sensation of birthing both of my children, and it is incredible. But if you're not willing to feel all of it, the full spectrum of all of it, there's no way to come through integrated and whole, right? It's like we'll just keep going back to Saturn, right? There's something about a restriction that channels energy, that directs it with more force. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the power of motherhood hinges on having a relationship with the ways that it's simply difficult and sacrificial. It's not the same as being a martyr. Making sacrifices is not the same as being a martyr and a victim. And there's, I think, too much conversation about, we're not set up for support. There's no community around this. There's no one there to help. And to a certain degree, but then what? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, but then what? Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah.
So it feels really difficult to be home alone with a newborn, but are you calling people and asking them to come over and sit with you because you're lonely? There are so many women that I've worked with that are explicitly not willing to be seen covered in God knows what, laying on their couch for the 4th day in a row, hair all over the place, not knowing what they're doing, which is what they need to do to receive help. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not willing to have me see you in that state, I can't help you. I can't be your community. Mm-hmm. It's not like having community means nothing hurts and it's not painful and you never feel like a failure. It's that you're willing to feel all of it and be seen and met there,
Mm-hmm.
so that that feeling cycle can complete itself and you move into the spaciousness of, like digesting a meal.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to listen to your digestive fire about like, that doesn't work for me, that was too much, that was not enough, then like you never get that satisfied full feeling or clean burning energy. Emotionally, it's the same thing.
Mm. Mm. So this asking for support piece, and also being willing to be seen imperfectly, ugly, messy, grieving, that
Yes.
deep vulnerability, which is your power. I get so
Yeah.
passionate. But birthing or not birthing, mother or not mother, it is the same dynamic. And I think that, not even being a mother myself, this is why I'm so passionate about motherhood and birthing and
Mm.
having been nurture this process in a way that is truly life supporting. And I've been writing some notes as we've been talking and thinking that this, everything that you're saying, it is a mirror of the dharmic path.
Yeah.
Motherhood is dharma in many ways, obviously, and for some it's more so. But all of the same key ingredients, all of the important markers of what is supporting you and nurturing you and encouraging your growth and your success as a mother, it's the same key ingredients for walking a dharmic path and having that commitment, that devotion, really
Mm.
committing to that. And there's one piece that we haven't talked about yet. And so, and this is part of the dharmic path, but it's creativity. And I know you're an artist. We also know you're a mover and a dancer, which is part of creativity and art. But you have many ways that you express your artistry. So how does your creativity shape or support or cultivate not only being a mother, but being a mother who has a business? You're a writer, all of the ways that your artistry shows up. How is your creativity supporting your business as a mother, Stacey?
Hold on, my phone is dying. I don't know if you can hear me still.
Is this better? Are we getting the call? We might be reminded that it's time to close. I know my phone likes to remind me of that. Hopefully Stacey will stay with us. I have 6 core ingredients or steps or keys that we've talked about today. Maybe you caught a few more and you're welcome to share with me in the comments below. I'll go through these 6 keys. We'll get Stacey back. I'm sure her phone will come back on and we'll do a closure. But these are the 6 keys that I want to invite you to stay with, whether you're a mother or not. Being a mother and having a successful business is going to require these 6 things. There'll be some other things as well, but this is also what your dharmic path is requesting of you as well. So first of all, being body centered, cultivating a path and a life that is body centered. Are you asking the body to share with you? What do you need? What feels good? What doesn't? So listening from a body centered perspective and cultivating a life. Choices, behaviors, everything comes from first listening to the body and letting the body remind you what it needs. Secondly, restructuring. If you're not willing to restructure, this is going to be even harder than it needs to be. So remember that if you are a new mother or you're walking a journey of motherhood, this ability to restructure and be flexible, you already know you're cultivating flexibility. But from a business perspective, the restructuring is vital. Now, I always remind women with their dharmic businesses that this is about cultivating iteration after iteration after iteration. It's many iterations of your offerings that will create success. So don't get stuck in old ways of being. And of course, this is about willingness to change. And we want to do that from a body-centered perspective. Empowerment. How are you cultivating and supporting yourself in your empowerment? And this is also about transforming undigested grief, really honoring where the undigested grief is in your body, in your life, and clearing out the channels of the old identities. The willingness to transform from an old identity into a new identity. This is what motherhood is anyway, but this is also what your Dharma and your dharmic path and your dharmic business is going to request of you as well. I talk a lot about the willingness to shift into a new ego identity. And so that willingness needs to be there. Grief work. Do your grief work. We covered a lot of ground today around grief work, but do that grief work. Get your support team in place. Walk with those who are also doing their grief work, and your grief is not something foreign to them. You need people surrounding you who are willing and able to hear your grief, to honor your grief, to validate your grief. It's normal. The body knows how to grieve. It's very wise in that knowing. So find the right people who can support you in this. And this is also about your business success, because there are going to be ways in which your grief impacts your ability to show up fully. And also, my reminder for all of my clients is, from a dharmic perspective, your client is you. When we're talking about a dharmic business, your client is you. So if you are not doing your grief work, you will not know what your client actually needs, and you won't be able to help them at all. So the grief work is essential in order for you to be successful as well as your client. Asking for support. So Stacey made it pretty clear we need more support, not less. And as a mother, I think that's one of the key ingredients that women learn. We've all been conditioned to reject, neglect, avoid that vulnerability of asking for help and asking for support in truly meaningful ways. So if you want to be successful as a mother and have a successful business, you're actually going to need more support, not less. So get comfortable with asking for more support. And the last piece is creativity, and this is where Stacey actually dropped off. I don't know if she's going to come back. We'll linger here for a few minutes longer and see if she is able to come back. But creativity is a key ingredient for your success. Again, whether you're a mother or not, being able to be creative, innovate, entrepreneurialism is so much about being creative. And when there's a challenge, finding a creative solution. Oh, something failed or didn't work. Okay, let me recreate and find another way forward. So your success is, mother or not, is deeply connected to your ability to be creative and innovative, thrive through your creativity. This is so important in order for success. There is no failure if you're willing to create and recreate and find solutions again and again and again. The rules are the same whether you're a mother or not. And yet, if you are a mother operating a business and sharing your gifts and wisdom, then there are some things that need to be changed in order for you to be successful. And I think that that's the key reminder for all of us today, is that if you are a mother and you are still sharing or wanting to share your gifts and wisdom, your nourishment, and your dharmic offerings in life, then you're going to have to be willing to change and restructure, and less is going to be more. And there are creative solutions, there are ways to do this, but it must be body centered. And I want to encourage every single mother watching right now to think about where the restructuring needs to be and where you can come back to your body more fully. Let the body lead the way. And the way that I teach dharmic business and creating successful business models for women is always body centered. We must let the body inform and support our success and literally the structure of our business. So if we're not doing that, we ultimately won't have sustainable results, because the body will determine in the end what we're able to do, what feels nourishing, and what we need. So listen to the body and cultivate that presence with what your body is telling you, so that you can create a life and a business that's truly successful. I still have 2 spots available in my Dharma mentorship group. 2 spots for 2022. This is where we do such powerful work, and you have a group of women who are committed not only to Dharma and body-centered living, but their creativity and their nourishment, their joy, touching lives in meaningful ways and building 6+ figure businesses. If it's you and you are hearing this message right now, you know you need support, you know you need guidance, you want to thrive this year, no matter where you are with your Dharma and your dharmic business, check in with me, please. And one of these 2 spots may be right for you, and we can have a meeting and see if it's a match. I'm just going to check one last time to see if Stacey's here. No, we lost her. I'll check in with her via text, and maybe she can follow up with us in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and close for now. Thank you all for joining me and Stacey live today. You can check Stacey's Instagram for her contact information. She's a full spectrum doula. She's a mama of 2, and she's sharing her gifts and wisdom in this world in fabulous, incredible ways. Go check her out, work with her, do the work, and get the support that you need so that you can thrive and be successful in body and business. Happy Friday, everyone. Take good care, and glad to spend this last hour with you. It's been truly nourishing for my soul, and I love these Friday lives. I'm going to keep them coming to you every week that I don't teach, and I'll see you next Friday.